Hello, everyone. How is everybody doing?
I'm Doc. How are
Good,
you?
Dr. Adu.
Great.
Looking forward to it.
All right. All right.
Good evening, Dr. Du. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Good Friday, Alan. All right, everyone. So we're still allowing people in. So please bear with me. We will start here in the next 2 minutes. All right, welcome everyone. This is Eretmis Cyber Chat. We hold this chat every Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern. And tonight we are still going on the path of the cybersecurity job placement series that we've been doing almost the whole month. And tonight is going to be the last of such series. And then next week, by this time, will be a new month. So hopefully we are going to move on to a different topic and maybe other series in those lines. So for Cyber Chats, like we always say, you could have been anywhere else on Friday night, but you chose to be here to develop yourself and to mingle with the Eretmis family, gain some skill set and some knowledge for your toolbox. And we are going to make sure your time here is not wasted. Mostly it takes an hour plus, right? So tonight we are going to try to stay within the time frame, right? So tonight we will be doing question and answers, right, on job placement. I mean, no question is off limit. You can ask your questions and we will address it accordingly. So for interviews that you went to, and questions that you think you are struggling with, we are here to help you make sense out of all of that and address that, right? So let's get started. And welcome to Eretmis Academy. This is sponsored by the Eretmis Academy. We do this for our students and non-students. Our doors are open to everybody. Cyber Chats is to help the whole entire cybersecurity community out, right? So it's a place to get some free training and free knowledge, right? And also to set the ball rolling for your career path in the security field. Now, Eretmis Academy is a cybersecurity training institute based in New York, and we train cybersecurity professionals. And we pride ourselves in helping to close the gap, the talent gap in the cybersecurity industry as of today, right? So if you are looking for cybersecurity training, look no further than the Eretmis Academy. All our training is done remotely. And about myself, I'm Dr. Emmanuel Adu. I'm going to be the facilitator for Cyber Chats tonight, as usual. And I'm a former United States Army captain. I'm the founder of Eretmis Academy, the CEO of Eretmis Inc., QSA company, PCI QSA company, and a cybersecurity consulting firm based in New York. I'm a former professor. I taught at the University of Maryland Global Campus and CTC as well. right? So enough about me. Let's move into what we are going to be discussing tonight. So tonight, we'll first look at cyber news. As usual, we are going to look at two of the trending cyber news that was trending during this week. And we will jump into the question and answers session for job placement. We have two students who went for interviews this week. So we will give them the floor for them to share some insights into what they were asked and some of the questions they struggle with, right? And we will address that. We open the floor. I mean, everybody can give the opinion, and maybe probably if you have some insights to also give them. This is a learning environment for everybody, right? So no, there is nothing like wrong answer or nothing like a dumb question, right? So feel free, ask your questions, and we are here to learn and grow, okay? So for cyber news this week, now I think for a while ago, cyber news, we talked about Meta, Facebook getting fined by Ireland for a violation of GDPR, right? So for folks who are not familiar with GDPR, if anybody is familiar with GDPR, they can maybe share a little bit more light on it before we dive deep into what happened to Meta or Facebook now, right? And we will discuss more into it. But if you are familiar with GDPR, you can raise your virtual hand, and we will give you the floor, and you can share some more insight into GDPR, what it is and what it is used for, right? And we will take it from there. So any takers from the group? Please raise your virtual hand. I think some folks have unmuted themselves. I know there is a lot of folks on here who are familiar with GDPR. All right, so just put, like, folks that I know this. I'm probably going to put somebody on the spot. I'm looking through the list, but I ain't find who. Vincent. I'm going to go with Vincent. Vincent.
Right, GDPR is an European privacy law. It's strictly European, meaning it's not applicable in the US, but it's applicable in all the countries within the EU territory. What it simply means is that the companies you give your information to don't have the rights to retain your information for a specified period, and they can't use your information to do the things you've not authorized them to do with it. That's the essence of the GDPR. It's a privacy law specifically designed for European countries to protect European citizens.
Thank you, Vincent. And I chose right. Anybody else want to? Adrian. Adrian was next. I was going to pick on Adrian. Go ahead, Adrian.
I was trying to hide. I thought you'd be picking on me, but let me come out.
I was going to pick you next.
Yes, I agree with him that GDPR is, it actually emanates from the European Union, but it is an extraterritorial requirement, which means it applies outside its territory. So if any subjects of the EU are anywhere else, you need to be careful how you need to handle their data. I think that's how I understand it. But one other special thing about GDPR is that it does not seem to protect the organization. It's there to protect the subjects. So it gives you certain rights, like you need to be notified if your information is being taken. They have to take only minimum information, not more than what they need, and they have to specify the purpose for which they are taking that information and use it strictly only for that purpose. And if there are any changes to your data, you need to be notified, and it gives you a right to refuse your data being used. So that's one thing about it. And usually in organizations, the person who is supposed to be in charge of data privacy is kind of supposed to be representing customers and not the organization. So usually a CIO will not also be a data protection officer. I think I've spoken too much, Doc. Back to you.
Thank you, Adrian. Very insightful. So Vincent and Adrian, very insightful. Julius, go ahead.
Yes, Doctor, I just wanted to add that because the first speaker spoke, he said the GDPR it's a law. For me, I believe that it's a regulation. I don't know if you may confirm with that.
Well, any lawyers on here who want to help differentiate between regulation and a law for us? I'm not really a legal person, so law and regulations, like what is really the difference between law and regulation? Just in terms of English or law, like anybody with some, legal insights? Bernard, go ahead.
Prof, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Bernard.
It's kind of a very blur lines. Regulation is what you have to operate within the regulation. You have to operate if it's the regulation. Let's say an agency, and you have these regulations. So it means that you have to operate within these regulations. It is, I would say, yes, the regulations are laws. Yes, they are, because you have to operate within it. Other than that, there wouldn't be any regulations. But to add to that, I think there are certain basic principles that the GDPR operates. All of us here know about the CIA, and there are more to it in terms of lawfulness, fairness, transparency, data minimization, accuracy, storage limitations, and integrity. And so within this framework, that is where the GDPR operates, so that you don't go beyond certain limits that the regulation allows you to.
Okay.
Because the laws are there.
Okay. Okay.
I will end here.
Yeah, thank you. And like my follow-up to that is, I know Julius also, has a comeback. I'll let Awini go first, and then I'll let Julius go, and then I'll also give my follow-up on regulations and laws. Which category are we going to place GDPR? Go ahead, Awini.
So in every country, we have what we call the Constitution. The Constitution is made of articles. Within the articles, each article can be developed into a law. The law is an expanded form of the article within the Constitution. So the law will expand a line within the Constitution or a phrase within the Constitution and make it a law. So when the law is made, that law, for instance, a law is made to regulate cybersecurity. The law is very summarized. So a regulation, which is mostly called legal instrument, is also developed in addition to the law. So the regulation is an expanded administrative instrument which implements the law. So for the law to be implemented in every institution, it comes with a regulation. So mostly regulation regulates institutions and industries. So the regulation picks itself from the law picks itself from the Constitution. So the GDPR law is very summarized, maybe 25 pages, and the GDP regulation will be like 30 pages. Within each phrase or article within the law is an expanded form of all the individual clauses and articles of the law in the regulation. So regulation will define the terms, the terminology used. So that when you read anything at all and you don't understand, you go to the regulation, look at how it is expanded, and then you pick the meaning from there. So coming to the GDPR is a privacy law which gives strength to the individual to have the right of say to companies and institutions as to how their private data should be used. And it comes with a penalty. And it can be both a regulation and a law, depending on which one you take. And that is why most of the notes you gave us and most of your slides, you combine the law and the regulation as one. And if you look at the books too, the same thing they did. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Arini. Julius.
Yes, so I would just like, thank you. I would just like to say summarily that, the law comes from parliament. Laws are enacted in parliament by legislators, and regulations come from bodies that have been empowered by parliament, by the laws that are enacted by parliament. So parliament passes laws that give certain bodies the power to come up with regulations that might guide certain activities within the confines of country. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Julius. Very insightful. Karen, go ahead.
Oh, I thought I dropped my hand because I put my response in the chat.
Oh,
so
in the chat. Okay.
I would say that laws are it applies to everyone. Right. So if it's a law, then it's the law that everyone should abide by. Whereas regulations just apply specifically to a particular agency or group or an institution. So here, GDPR is a regulation because from what my colleague said, it's a European thing. It's a regulation that has to, it's for the Europeans. But if you're in the US and you are working with some Europeans, you have to follow that regulation. It's not a law, right? So it's a regulation, not a law. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Good evening, Dr. Du.
Good evening.
Okay, I think I like this deliberation. It's making us move away from focusing about security and other. So I like it. So for me, I somehow didn't agree with the last person that spoke that regulation it's meant for certain people. I think every organization, everywhere in the world, anywhere, any place, have this regulatory body. It's like there's a department that enforces the regulation laid by legislators for this very organization in the whole world. It's not just about individuals or some people abiding, or for some people and not for other people. Every company have this, but maybe they have it in different way. But now I think I agree with the other person that spoke before the last person, because I agree with you, because when you bring law, you marry it together with regulations, because now it's the registrators that make this law. And when they make this law, they put it in a way that, okay, this is the company regulations that you have to follow. That means the people working for this company have to abide by these regulations, because it's already law that is passed and made for that organization. So I think both of them marry each other, because without the law, there won't be regulations in any organization, whichever country it is. Then without law, where will you get, which people are empowered to make the regulation? So I think both of them goes hand in hand. And for me, they marry each other.
Okay, thank you, Ike. So we are going to move forward. Now, reason why I wanted us to really go a bit deeper into GDPR is that is for folks, not just for folks who want to, work in the GRC analyst area of cybersecurity, but for everybody. If you're in cybersecurity, you should know some of these regulations or laws, as we will call it, right? Now, GDPR is a data privacy law or regulation. Anyhow you want to look at it. We will leave that to the like technically savvy, law, inclined folks on here to really determine which category or which area it is going to fall under. But GDPR for Europe, right? It is for Europe. So the 27 European Union countries came together and they came up with this data privacy law, right? If we want to call it law, right? And reason why they came up with this is that, in today's day and age, social media and all these huge tech companies, they collect data from us. And then guess what they do with it, right? For if like before Facebook started doing ads and all that, right now it is very obvious they do a lot of ads and YouTube and the rest. Proud to that, like, what do you think was the way they used to make money, right? Like, how were they making money when they were not really, very high on, advertisements, right? And even still now with all the advertisement that they make, why do tech companies have a lot of money? Because they sell the data that they collect from us, right, to the highest bidder. So whoever you go to Facebook, unknowingly you sign in, there is a whole list of agreements. Just click on agree. I don't think anybody reads that, right? You have to agree before you move on. Now, there's a lot of things within that fine print that you're not even paying attention to. So you just, you just want to get it done with. So you click OK, you just move on. Now, all that information they are gathering from you, your activities on the web, things that you want to, like where you are shopping and, what you do on the web, they take all that information and they sell it to the highest bidder, who in turn is going to use it for targeted marketing, right? So these huge tech companies, they get a lot of money from this. Now, I guess who is not going to get part of this money? Us. The end users whose information they are selling to make the money, we don't get nothing, right? And they're also using our data anyhow they want, because we signed some agreement that we didn't even read. So European Union came up with this data privacy to protect European citizens, right? European Union citizens, right? So they came up with GDPR, and you can look it up and look at the regulations or like what they have in there in terms of the individual elements. So, fairness, end users, like this regulation or law is really targeting end users. End users should have the opportunity to tell any company that collects their information to delete it, to not use it for certain purposes, or not to collect it or use it for, so that there's a whole list of it that you can go through, right? Now, companies that, this does not affect only companies that work within Europe. Although this regulation or law, it was made for European citizens. If you're a company within the United States or anywhere else in the world, and you are, collecting information from European Union members, you have to stay in compliance with this, right? So that is why I'm saying, if you want to work in cybersecurity, you have to know this. So if you didn't know this, please look into it, right? Or interviews that you're going to go to and all that, there's going to be at least one of these in there. This is going to be one of the regulations that they're going to ask you if you know something about. Now, this GDPR has kind of become the pioneer when it comes to data privacy laws or regulations, right? The United States, as of date, we don't have any single GDPR, we don't have any single data privacy law or regulation for the whole entire United States. It's certain states that are spearheading this. So California is the first to, I stand to be corrected if I'm wrong, but for the longest, California is the only state with data privacy law to protect its citizens, right? And it's called CCPA, yeah, I think. And now New York has followed suit. Virginia is also coming up with their own, but the whole entire United States, we don't have anything similar to GDPR, right? I don't know why, but that is above my pay grade. So for Europeans, this is meant to protect them. So if you're a company outside the United States, outside Europe, you are collecting or dealing with European Union members, then you have to stay in compliance with this. If you don't stay in compliance, you can get fined, and that is what happened to Facebook or Meta, right? So Meta got fined by Ireland, right? Because they were not in compliance with GDPR, and Ireland, I think their fine was almost €4 million, but they ended up paying 2.5. And there's a little development here that makes it more interesting, right? This money, right, the fines that are collected if you're in violation to GDPR, the money is actually supposed to be shared to victims who are the EU members whose data was misused, right, or whose data was used without their consent. So that the money is supposed to be shared among these victims. But if you don't actively apply, to get part of this money, they're not going to give it to you, right? So, and also we know GDPR is for the whole entire Europe, right? For the EU countries. Now, if there's a fine, guess who the fine goes to? It goes to the country whose citizens were violated, right? So it was Ireland who, fined or who filed this suit against Meta or Facebook. So the money went to them, and the money is just going to sit there until citizens, or come and apply or take, the matter to court to try to get some of this money, right? So what GDPR is trying to do, right, is to try to take some of the money these huge tech companies are making and sharing it to the end users like you and myself, right? If you live in Europe, right? So, they've been selling our data for all these while they're making all this huge money, but nothing is coming to us. So if they're in violation, they are using it in any way that they are not supposed to, then, they get fined, and the money, like citizens within the country that find whichever company can actually apply and get some of this. So that is very interesting. So for everybody, if you are not familiar with GDPR, if you want to work within cybersecurity space or you're already in the space, please go look this up, right? So, and now we are going to look at OpenAI. So OpenAI or other AI companies and websites that are around, we know AI can be used for good. Chat GPT has been, causing a lot of waves and stir, for the past year and change, right? Now, what is happening? Now, OpenAI, owners of Chat GPT, and Google and some huge tech companies, they've come together to form a forum, right? And the goal for this forum is to help ensure that AI is used for good, right? AI can be used for a lot of bad, right? So the giants in the AI industry are trying to make sure that they are going to protect how AI is being used within the tech space, right? So which is good, right? So this is going to be our last cyber news for the week. Now, if you want more cyber news, there are a lot of outlets that you can get cyber news from. So we are going to jump straight into our job placement assistance question and answers, right? So I think since Karen is here, I'm going to give her the floor. So she went for an interview this week, and we would like to pick her brain on some of the questions that she struggled with, and other questions that she was asked and how she answered those questions. And then folks on here can also give their inputs. Please raise your virtual hand if you have a comment to give. So like I'm saying, this is a safe environment for everybody to learn. So there are no right or wrong. We can agree to disagree, but we are here to learn, right? So there is always, if you really want to develop yourself as a security professional, the more you know you don't. So we are here to learn. So Karen, if you can go ahead and maybe give us some insights. I know we talked offline, but you can give us some insight into some of the questions you were asked and what the job title was and what the job was entailed, what the job really entailed, and what were some of the struggling areas for the interview that you went to.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Edu. And so I've been, like you said, I've been, oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Yes. So I've been searching and sending. It's not easy to even get selected. That's what I'm gonna start with. But fortunately, I had a company. The company is a software company. They have a platform that sells SaaS to other companies, and the position even though it's a GRC position, it's an all-round role. So you'll be doing GRC things. You'll be dealing with GDPR and CCPA and a whole lot. At a point in time, they even asked me if I could code, but it's an all-round position. The thing was, and I mean, I had the help of Michael Yabua. I tortured him so much with my questions and everything, because this would be my first time ever interviewing. And we prepped well. I think I was over prepped, which is a good thing, because it's better than not being prepped at all. We started by me introducing myself, and which I did. And then the next question was, what's your line of defense? So that was one question that actually threw me off, because in as much as I prepped for this interview, at some point in time, I was concerned that when I'm being asked my role at work, even when I ask, one thing I didn't do was to study my organizational structure, the cybersecurity structure there. So I'm not so familiar with that organogram. So when he asked that question, and then he had to explain himself, are you first line of defense, second line of defense, or third line of defense? And I'm like, oh my goodness. I mean, I didn't, I don't know if he saw panic, but I was able to escape. But fortunately or unfortunately for me, this is someone who has actually worked in a banking space before. And even though he didn't work with Bank of America, he actually worked with one of the big banks. And the thing about him is that I tried to do a little research about him, and on his LinkedIn page, it says confidential. So he's actually, you don't see anything about him. And even when we had the interview, he still didn't divulge where he worked or what he did, even though he said he did cybersecurity, but he didn't really go into details. He didn't even mention the name of the bank that he worked with. But of course, he didn't work with Bank of America. So that was one thing. And then the next question was, okay, to explain what he meant by first line of defense or whatever, from my position and my manager's position, do we directly report to the CISO, or is there another manager or another person that we report to before the CISO? Am I working directly in line with the CISO, or do we have a separate entity or a separate team that also works for the security space? So, I mean, that was one question. Even though, yes, I managed to, say something, but I thought that was a question that didn't come to me when I was prepping, and that actually took me off a bit. And then, because they are a software company, the one question that they also asked was about VPN. So the question was, for a software company, what would be the best way to secure your devices without like a physical firewall? And that was because there was this issue, a VPN issue came in, and he was asking, so if you have, if you don't have VPN, or you don't have any firewalls or any physical walls, how would you be able to solve a VPN problem? And I'm like, where is this question going to? Yes, I managed to answer that question, but the question didn't really sound well to me. And he tried to explain himself like 3 times. I think he had 3 versions of the same question, because he himself wasn't covering it well. This came across because he was asked, I was asked to name some policies I've worked on. And I mentioned some policies, password policies, and then remote access policy. So it was a remote access that actually brought about the VPN question. And I answered, but I think I struggled a bit to answer that question. Overall, questions on, we didn't really, even though there were a lot of duties on there, we didn't go through a lot of the technicalities. It was more of third-party vendor risk assessment, which is an assignment we are still working on. So that was quite a simple question for me to answer, and I was able to take him through all the processes. Some of the questions were quite easy. Are you able to draft a policy from start to finish? Which, of course, we've worked on, so that was not a problem. And if he gave me the chance to even take him through it, that would have been easy. Of course, he gave me the chance to take him through the vendor risk assessment report. But basically, Dr. Edu, these two questions were what I think I struggled with. One thing, and yes, they wanted someone who knew how to code or who could code. And of course, I don't know how to code. So I told him, okay, I don't know how to code, but I can learn. I mean, that I know, I was just saying to get a job, but I'm not sure I'm ready to code now. Yes, but basically it was, for my first interview, I think it was a very interesting one, and it wasn't as difficult that I thought it would be. And I mean, I panicked, but it wasn't that much. And after the interview, it was okay, and we're able to talk a bit more. I asked him the questions that I could think of, if they have policies in place, what they've actually been able to achieve so far. Because based on what they have on their website, it sounded like they didn't have a GRC person at all. So I wanted to know if they had one who had left and, where they were in their security processes. So yes, that was what the questions that it was a 45 minutes interview, but he used 25 minutes for his questions to me, and then the remaining were questions to him and about the company. He didn't really talk much about the company. I did that with the recruiter, but the second person I interviewed with didn't really talk much about the company because he had just joined the company like 5 weeks ago. So he's actually new, and I don't know if he's trying to build a team for himself, but yeah, basically that was it. And then one more question, Dr. Edu, you mentioned this, that even though we have people saying GRC, we need to know Excel in and out, even if not like we need to know Excel. And that was one question he asked. Are you good with Excel? What do you do with Excel? Those questions. I mean, I managed to speak, but if it's something you don't do and something that you do but you're not really familiar with, I think you might also fumble with that question. What do you do with Excel? Because and he was like, what formulas do I put in the Excel? Which was strange to me, but yes. So that was my experience with my interview yesterday. And I have the job description. I don't know if we have enough time for me to go through the job description, but if you want me to go through the job description, I can do that, Dr. Edu.
Yeah, if you want to make it brief, like you can go through, at least everybody will have a fair idea. And if you have it, you want to share your screen, that is also possible. But if not, if you can't share your screen, then you can just go through it.
Yes, I can share my screen, but I'll just briefly go through it because it's not so much. So on the compliance and policy side, ensure our compliance with relevant security, privacy laws and standards. Identify, prioritize, and act upon opportunities to bolster our security stance. Develop and manage information security and privacy policies. Oversee the implementation of security initiatives. Manage third-party vendor risk, including secure software supply chain. And then manage annual SOC 2 audit reports, and also prepare for additional certifications like ISO 27001, and respond to security questionnaires from prospects and current customers, as well as inquiries about GDPR, CPA, CCPA, etc. And then the technical side, consult with engineering leadership on the implementation of security-related functionality, oversee and manage IT security measures, including MDM, account access, etc. So basically, this are the roles in summary.
Okay, so there was nothing like coding in there.
No, there was nothing like coding in there, Dr. Edu. But then the recruiter asked me if I could code. And the second person I also spoke with also asked the same question, if I could code.
So, meaning, so what I take from this is HR didn't really put everything that they were looking for exactly on there. I mean, they hit on some of it, third-party risk management and the rest, but I think coding wasn't on there. I mean, if you don't know coding, you don't know coding. And it's not because of that one job that is why you are going to pass it behind to go learn coding, right? And you don't know what, like, did they ask you what programming language?
No.
Looking for? So, yes.
No.
So just knowing coding is kind of vague. What programming language are they really looking for? Right? So, I mean, if that wasn't in there and they threw that in there, then, you know, if you don't know it, you don't know it. Right. All right. Thank you, Karen, for your insight. Now, overall, like, how well do you think your preparation helped you for this? Aside the areas that you struggled with.
Very, very well. Very, very well. And once again, I would say thank you to Michael. Like, very, very well. And then the night we also spoke. So fortunately, the interview was supposed to be on Wednesday, but there was a mix-up, so it ended up being on Thursday. So, I mean, when I spoke to you, I noticed how unprepared I really was. So, and it was quite embarrassing because in my field, I should know GDPR because that's part of, what we do. And the night we spoke, like, my mind was blank. I think I was just so tensed. But then I went through everything, and I managed to go back on the acronyms, like you've been saying, learn the acronyms. So, I mean, the abbreviation. So I went back and then went through all the abbreviations and made sure that, there were things that I was comfortable with. And then with my duties, like what I do on day-to-day basis, based on some steps that Michael helped me with, I was able to. So in my introduction, those were what I presented, like my day-to-day activity, how I, prep myself, and how the process I use work like. And so even after I was telling Michael that I think I was over-prepared, because it was good, the preparation was good. And for me, it's also a learning step because it's actually opening your mind to more things that you have to know, so that in your next interview, you know what you're expecting. And then, I mean, it also simplifies what you have to study, because if you know that, okay, GDPR, I didn't know that, now you know it. So in your next role, if there is something else in there that you haven't met before, you'd rather focus on learning that one instead of, now going back to a previous lesson. And I think for your first time, your mind is everywhere. Oh, I have to know this, I have to know that. But once you prepare and you know the duties and responsibilities that is being required, you have a more structured way of studying. So yes, that chat with you was awesome, and Michael also really, really, really helped me so well. So thank you both.
All right, Karen, thanks for your insight. So there are some questions in here. I think somebody was asking if your interview was in person or virtual. I think it was virtual.
It was virtual. It was virtual.
Okay, so I think Michael even answered that. And then also Kingsley asking, is it okay to tell whoever is interviewing you that coding wasn't part of the job description? So Kingsley, whoever is going to interview you they are not restricted in any shape or form to the job description that was posted, right? If that person is the person you're going to work for, probably what they are looking for is totally different from what is on the job description, right? I've seen students go to interviews and like similar job description like yours, and the person on there was, all they were talking about was networking, like you were applying for a networking engineering role, right? In that instance, you prepared for it, but it just took a different twist. And like, you'll be wondering, if they are looking for a network engineer, why did they post all these things on there? Like, sometimes for those, you just don't have to, like, worry yourself about, just move on, right? But for the most part, I think like 80 to 90% of the time, what they post is, what they are looking for, 80%, 90% of the time. But there are instances where you go into interviews and it will take like a 180. They are going totally deep, and you are like, am I in the wrong interview? Right? So there will be instances where they will throw things that are way off, to you. So that is why you have to be all-rounded, right? You don't have to box yourself into, I just want to be a SOC analyst. You can go to a SOC analyst interview and they are asking you about, okay, so what do you know about third-party risk management? That is not a time for you to say, well, third-party risk management wasn't part of it. Really, you are the one looking for the job, right? Not the other way around. So we have to be well prepared, right? Don't limit yourself to, in terms of knowledge, make sure you are open. And then also one thing that I'll also say is, for the job description, make sure you've mastered everything on it inside and out. So it is silly if they have on there, you have to have a good working knowledge of the GDPR and CCPA and SOC 2, and then during the interview, so what do you know about SOC 2? And you're like, well, I really don't know nothing about it. That is just outrageous, right? Because the interview, they gave you time and date. You had a job description. You had to prepare, right? So for like an interview like that is really going to end really quick, because they know you are there to waste their time, right? And they will be scratching their head why you even came to the interview, because you are so such like things like that are just like bonus, or like that is a given. Everything on the job description, for those that you know inside and out, that is fine. For those that you don't know, make sure you familiarize yourself with it. Example, if there is GDPR on there, you've never seen it in your life, that's okay. You can work in cybersecurity for 10 years and still wouldn't have heard about GDPR. It's possible, depending on what you are doing and where you are, right? So you just have to dig into it and understand what it is, like what it's about, and how it relates to the company you want to go with. So with the questions that you struggled with, organizational structure, right? For that, if you really have no idea, and plus, like the questions that he was asking, maybe probably you didn't get the question well. And what I would encourage everybody to do is, don't be shy, or if you don't understand the question, let them know, hey, can you rephrase it, or like, what exactly are you looking for? Because articulating your idea, into questions for somebody to answer is not an easy task. Right? So if that person is not very articulate, or they don't frame it well where you understand, right? Just let them know, like they can rephrase it, and you're probably going to get what they are referring to, or like what exactly they mean. Right? So you did well for him to like repeat or rephrase it for you. But for organizational structures in cybersecurity, it's not really one size fits all. It depends on the company. Some companies have only one cybersecurity person, and that person reports to maybe the director, or like IT, like the director, or like the director of IT, or maybe VP for IT, or straight to CIO or somebody like that, right? Other companies might have like a full-blown structure where you have either CISO and CIO going, shoulder by shoulder, or CISO will be under CIO, and then, your directors or maybe VPs, and then coming down all the way to managers, and then to the security analyst. So it depends on the organization, right? So, whatever you say, you are not wrong. And plus, you were saying he used to work, I think somebody was asking where Karen works. So Karen works at Bank of America, right? I don't think she's working in a cybersecurity role But I think because this guy knew she worked at Bank of America, he was just asking what the organizational structure was like on the cybersecurity side. But I think she wasn't privy to that, and that was kind of that caught her off guard. But it's still a good learning experience, right? Now, everybody on here, I don't think they should catch you off guard, right? And also for moving forward, you have to also dig a little bit into the organization you want to go into, their structure, how their structure is like in terms of like their security structure. Right? Sometimes if you go to their website, you'll be able to figure these out. So, so enough about that. Now we move into the VPN. How would you solve a VPN problem? So that question is not very clear. I'm not really sure how he phrased it or what exactly he was looking for. Right? But for software companies, I'm even surprised they didn't ask you about API, right? For software companies, did he ask anything on the lines of API?
No, he didn't. It was just about the VPN. So I think from my understanding, if you have if you have devices without any so he says physical walls. You have devices without physical walls. Yes. So then I asked file. I was like, so whichever walls that I want to, whichever walls that I want to use. But if you have devices like that, how would you so without VPN, how would you
access them?
Yes. So how would you either bridge the gap with a vendor? Dr. Edu, one funny thing. I planned on recording so this was just right from memory, right after the interviews, because I planned on recording everything, and I didn't turn the recorder on, even so I couldn't record everything. So right after the interview, I mean, based on the few things I learned from how to prepare for the interview, I just wrote down everything that, I had difficulty with. So yes, basically that was the VPN thing. So from the way I understood the question, I had to tell him about one of the third-party risk assessment meetings we had, and how they were able to demonstrate their systems for us to be able to, so like a software that can solve that problem. That was the response that I gave to him. Yeah, because that question was also not so clear to me, but I just gave him that response. Okay.
So, yeah. I mean, those ones you struggle with, and then the ones that you are very familiar with. So, like the third-party risk management, how did that go? And I think Karen are you done with the internship, or you are currently in the internship?
We are almost done.
Okay.
We are almost done. I think we have a few more classes too, but we're almost done. Yes.
So like when it came to the things that you've actually done, like how easy was that?
Yeah. So for the third party, I took him through the process of contacting the vendors, scheduling the meeting with them, and them asking for what we need. So, I mean, once you talk to the vendor and the vendor asks for certifications, if you have to include an IT person who is more familiar with the systems, or even if you know them. So the vendor is likely to ask questions like how many nodes, how many endpoints that we need. So after that, you schedule a meeting with the vendor to see what they actually have. Prior to that, the vendor will send you some questionnaires to answer to see if we really want to work with them or really want to be in business with them. So, and then we have a meeting with the vendors, and based on the meeting we have, the vendors will, show us what they have. They will just give us a little demonstration about their system or software or whatever thing that we are interested in. And once we are satisfied with their product, we get back to them and then send them our questionnaires for them to fill and answer. And then based on the responses that they give, we'll decide if we are going to work with them or not. And part of the responses they give. We also have access to their security policies and then their SOC 2 report. Yes, and there he gave me the chance to talk about the SOC 2 reports very well, which I mean, I've seen. So, and we've discussed that too. So that was the process I took him through.
So, and also like there wasn't any mention, he didn't talk about, okay, I mean, he brought up SOC 2. So for software companies, obviously SOC 2 is one of the, if we will call it, frameworks that they have to, or like one of their compliance requirements. So it's not mandated, but if you want to be competitive, you have to stay in compliance with SOC 2. So Karen, we appreciate your inputs. If there are any questions for Karen or any comments, please, you can raise your virtual hand and she will answer, or you can give your contribution. And then also, I think one thing that you mentioned that I think everybody should look at is Excel. So Excel might, you know, come off as, I mean, what really is Excel? If you are talking about tools, Excel is nothing. Excel is everything, right? I think like for one of our students, when she got on, like the job that she got, all that they were using was Excel. Because she knew Excel, she was the rock star there, right? So, and that is why for the internship, you deal with Excel a lot, right? Most of the tools that you are going to be given, if you don't know Excel, you'll be forced to at least learn Excel a little bit. So, thanks for the inputs, Karen. Now, I think Fabi also had an interview, but she sent her questions. But if she's on here, she can maybe give us some insights into how hers went. That will also be much appreciated.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Fabi.
Yes, I just had an interview. Well, Dr. Du was advising us that even when you are in the internship, you can start applying for jobs. And I took the advice and I was applying for the job. And one that I applied for was a managerial position. I myself, I wasn't thinking I'm going to be called to have an interview. I was just putting on the, I was just applying. So they just told me that they find my CV to be very good and they needed to interview me on that position. So yes, we fixed a date, and then we fixed a date, but later on they called me that the interviewer had an issue, so we have to schedule the meeting. So we did it, and I called Dr. Du and I sent him all the responsibilities and the duties that a manager should have, or what they are requiring in the job. And Dr. Du took me through a whole lot. It was very insightful thing that he took me through. So the interview time came, and they didn't ask me to tell about yourself. No, they just came on the line and they were talking about their own company, that the company is that, the company is a company that supply energy, that is solar energy, that they supply, and they are trying to get into North America mostly to help people get this solar energy. So they talk about their own company. They didn't ask me to introduce myself, nothing. And it's like we were talking. So they asked me, so what did I think about the solar system? And I also talk about what I know, because Dr. Du have told me to go inside and then know what. So and they were very happy to hear that I was talking about their products. So they asked me, so what do you think? So I was just telling them that, well, in Africa, that is what I said. In Africa, you know, the sun is very high over there. So if they can extend their company to Africa so that they can have Africans also. And they were telling me, yes, they tried to do that, but now the company just want to be in North America, just America that they want to do. So they asked me, so what do you want to do for the company? And I said, yes, I have been called to be interviewed. So what do you think I can do to help your company? And then it started. Okay. They said they have a whole lot of questions for me. So they started by asking me how many people have I managed? And then I told them I've managed 5 people in a team, and they were saying, how do you work around with those people? And meanwhile, I have talked to Michael also, and Michael gave me a STAR method of answering questions. So that is what I use in answering the question by saying that, well, in the team, we are 5, and what we do is, because I manage them, when there is an incident, I call them together, and then everyone knows his or her role to play if there is a project that we have to do. So we all do it, and then we come together, bring a report. And then he asked me, so what is the lowest performance or any conflict that you have found in managing your team? And then I also told him a story using the STAR method, that I had a low performer, but I needed to know why he was going down. So I contacted him, and then I talked to him. Well, we were just talking. Then we find ourselves in a very common ground. And then I just chip in that, well, I've been seeing your performance so low. So why is it, what is it? And then he was open up and he told me everything, and I advised him. And then I saw that he's back on track and everything was good. So he just asked me one question, that incident response, how do we go about incident response, and what is the process when there is an incident? So I told him about incident response, that in every company, it is important to have an incident response plan and incidents response team that will help the company if there is an incident. So in the first place, when there is an incident, you have to identify the incident, and then you have to, well, I said you have to prepare yourself first, because all the company have to prepare himself in everything that they are doing, so that if there is any incident, you'll be able to mitigate or solve it. So you do preparation, you do identification to know what the problem is, and then you do containment. If it is something that you can contain, you contain it, and then you do eradication. So I use all those incident process to answer the questions, but I did it in a STAR form, so that and he was nodding his head, and then it came to a place he asked me, so what are some of the security matrices that you have used, and how did you use it? And to be frank, the matrix, I've learned it, but when I reached there, everything was gone in my head. So I decided to speak about the meantime when there is an incident, the meantime, like you hold on to see how the period of time that you can solve the problem so that the company can continue to go on. And then he came in to ask me about a technical thing that threw me off. And that was, he said that, okay, in our company, we want a cybersecurity manager who is technically deep into security. So he asked me, what do you think you are technically deep in terms of cybersecurity management as a cybersecurity manager? And I didn't know what to say. I was sitting down, and then what came my mind was that, okay, I told him, okay, vulnerability scanning is something that I can do. And then he came to say, okay, so if vulnerability, how do you do the vulnerability? What do you use? So I said, okay, we have security tools that we use. So I said Splunk and then Qualys. We use them to do the vulnerabilities. And then he just came. So he asked me again, so what are the vulnerabilities that you see when you scan the system? And then I told him, well, we scan for ports, opening, and so on. So that is what I told him, and I really know that I wasn't doing well because I was just saying something that will make me know, will just let them know that I'm saying something, but I really didn't know what I was saying. And then he just asked me another thing about if if SSH is running on a system, is it secured? Well, I just told him that yes, it is secure, but he really wanted me to go into further and explain. So I just told him, well, I know that it is secure. Then he came in to say that yes, it is a secured tool because it has encrypted mechanism in it. So when there is a transmission of data or information, it can encrypt it, and then it's very secure. So later on, I saw that he himself was teaching me certain things about even NIST. He asked me of NIST, and then he asked me of OAS, and he told me that even the NIST and the CIS, they all have some flaws in it that as security personnel, we have to look into it. And he said that the OWASP, the flaws that OWASP is having is that they bring top 10 vulnerabilities, or yes, that they see. But what about the 11th and then the 12th and the 13th one that the company experience? So what about those ones? So it's a fraud that is in those OWASP system. And then he said the NIST also is having frauds because there are certain securities that are needed to be embedded in it, but they just give us a shadow of what to do, but they don't go into details. So at the long run, he turned back to teach me a whole lot. So that is how my interview went. But I was grateful that Dr. Du taught me about the incident. I really delivered about the incident, how to go about it. And then the matrix, I was able to mention one matrix, and I think he was okay. But when it came to the technical side, that is what I think failed me, and I couldn't move forward. So it's good when you do interviews, it's good. It lets you know where you are, how you are standing, and how prepared you are. And this was a managerial position that I went to take that I wasn't supposed to take as an entry entry level personnel, but it was an experience, and I am very grateful of what Dr. Edu has taught, and Michael also gave me an insight in a whole lot. So that is how my interview went. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Fabi. So there are a lot of pointers, and we can discuss like some of these also online. And Fabi, correct me if I'm wrong. You were in the entry level course, right?
Yes.
Okay, so some of the questions you were struggling with, right, tells me you didn't take networking seriously. So you probably have to revisit networking, because you probably go there and you're like, oh, this is too technical, and we're skipping some of it.
Yeah.
Right? But these were like these are, when we talk about like deep technical, these are like very shallow. SSH, like why is it secure? I mean, like those ones are just a given. And then also, which technical area are you familiar with, or are you proficient in? So reason why I keep telling everybody, well, when we talk about like technical area of cybersecurity, most people think it has to do with coding, right? So if you have that mindset, with such questions, you're going to run into issues. Everything is technical, right? Your knowledge in incident response is a technical knowledge. Your knowledge in risk management is a technical knowledge. Your knowledge in identity and access management is a technical knowledge. So every area comes with, because the ordinary person who's not gone through any training or has done anything within the cyberspace, they wouldn't know, anything that borders on those areas, right? So all those are technical areas. So let's not limit ourselves to just maybe networking stuff, or everything within cybersecurity is technical. Even, the soft skill side is also technical. Because now let's just move from the technical hard skills. We are talking about that. So Fabi, what I will encourage you to do is to go through, because I know there are a lot of folks on here who probably went through the entry level, and with these questions, they are probably like smiling and giggling, because like these were easy peasy, right? And then also when he was asking you about frameworks, or he was asking you about NIST and OWASP, and that was pretty much like our bread and butter in their internship, right? So those ones you should also polish up on, right? But overall, the interviews for your first, second times is an eye-opener, right? It will let you know your flaws and areas that you have to polish up on, right? So for your first time, I think you did great. Now, my take on where you started. So you said they asked you about your company. They didn't even ask you about yourself.
No.
And like I always keep saying, they really care less about you, right? It's about them. So you have to understand their language. It's about them, not you, right? So if they ask you, tell me about yourself, they are trying to hear if you have anything to say about you that will help their company, right? So don't get into that notion that they really like you and they truly want to know about you. No, they don't. Right? So that is why they went straight into their company, what they do, and the solar company and all that. So I think if I remember correctly, when I saw this job description, what I told you was that dig into their company, learn more about solar and renewable energy.
Yes. Yes, you did.
And that was the first question.
Yeah.
Right. So if you pulled up like a blank on that one, what do you know about solar or renewable energy? And you're like, well, I know it's used to generate electricity, and that is all that you know. Well, then the interview wasn't going to go that long. Like it went, because they actually showed interest and they wanted to keep moving on. So like what I keep saying, know more about the company than the person interviewing you.
Yeah.
Right. So whatever the company is doing, dig into it, learn about it, research about it, right? Because the last thing you want to know, these are easy questions. What do you know about us? I mean, with your phone, within 5 minutes, you know a whole lot about anything that you want to know about. So if you don't know anything about the company that you want to work for, I mean, that is a big question mark, right? So you did well on that one. What do you want to do for us? So this was also a very good opportunity for you to shine.
Mm-hmm.
Because they just told you they want to set up shop in North America.
Yeah.
So they have no structures in place. I mean, they might have a good security, something in place wherever they are, but now where they want to set up shop, they have nothing. So you coming in as a security manager, you are going to help build everything from scratch.
Yeah.
And probably you are very familiar with building security from scratch, because that is
Yes.
what you did in your internship. I think for your group, you built a security program from scratch.
Yes.
So everything that you did, you should have just started like going on till they tell you, okay, it's enough, stop. Right. But all those are lessons, for other future interviews. So what do you want to do for us? That was a freebie, in my opinion. Like, that was a freebie, right? And for somebody who's actually done or work in security, you've done projects, exactly what they are looking for. I mean, that should have been easy. If you've never done anything on those lines, then it's kind of a difficult question, right? But if you've actually done, you went through the internship, you guys are almost like 3 months now, almost done. So, I mean, that was a freebie. So things that you can do for them: setting up their security infrastructure, setting up their incident response program, setting up the identity and access management program, setting up everything, right? But you can go like specifics, right? Mm-hmm. And go through it. Yes. Okay. So if you're able to take the ball and you're running with that on that question, they wouldn't have come back to ask you maybe some of the questions that they did. Right. Mm-hmm. So mostly, if you were speaking to most of the technical stuff and things you can do, I mean, obviously they know you are very proficient when it comes to that side. Right? So all questions that they had on the technical side, they would have probably skipped those. So just something for you to note. Now, how many people have you managed? Now, this is very common for managerial positions, right? And how many people you've managed doesn't necessarily have to be from a cybersecurity job that you did or IT job that you did. Managing people is managing people.
Okay.
I used to tell my soldiers in the army, right? In the army, we have only like 5 soldiers. They are the same people you meet in different units with different name tags. What do I mean by that? Behavior, human behavior, similar everywhere, right? You're always going to have that one person in your team who never shows up on time, who never does their work. All they want to do is hang out and talk to people while they are working, right? If you go to this unit, you find that person, he's probably called Ike. The next unit, you find Ike with a different name tag called Alan. You find, because the behavior is the same, right? You get to that unit, like you keep looking around, you're like, oh, that is Ike. Okay, that is Alan. That is from my old unit, right? But you didn't bring those people along. You just went to a whole different unit, but the people are the same, right? So managing people, if you manage them in security, if you manage them in Walmart, same thing, right? So managerial skills, if you have it, you have it. Regardless, that is why for leadership and managerial, roles, we can move a CEO from Coca-Cola and put him in Apple. I mean, what does soft drinks has to do with tech, right? So you might think, oh, they need somebody who is, like a tech person to be able to, function well in that. But it's about leading and managing people. It's not about the product, right? You have to have some understanding of what they are doing in the product. But frankly, if you are good at leading and managing people, the people are going to function and do the work. Right? Your job in any managerial role or leadership role is to lead or to manage. And everything else is going to fall in place. So if you've managed elsewhere, you can use that here, right? So, and then they went ahead and asked you, how do you manage people on your team? So, and then they came down to ask, so how do you manage people on your team? That is also a freebie, right? Mostly for all these managerial questions or soft skills, right?
Yeah.
What you can take from this is that mostly when they ask you, always come from a point of knowledge. And what do I mean by that? If they are asking you about, so how do you handle conflicts, or somebody is in your team, they are acting up, they are showing up late, not doing their part of it. That is what they were asking you. So it was about team conflicts, right? So you start from
Yes.
the concepts and theories you know in team conflict handling. So there are, maybe from my experience, there are 5 ways of handling team conflicts, or 2, 3 ways. This way, that way, that way, right? Now, this way is my preferred method, or I combine both, right? Addressing issues head on is one way. Ignoring issues is one way, right? So I always want to address. So now you are walking them through theory or concepts, and then you bring it down to what exactly you did, right? So they know you understand the concept behind leadership or management or team conflicts handling, right? You are coming from a point of knowledge, and then you are going to bring in your own, right? Instead of just going with, I'll call the person and talk to the person and see what the problem is, and everybody's going to say that. But what is going to set you apart from everybody is come from a point of knowledge, right? If they ask you about, okay, so how do you manage your team? What are some of the concepts and methodologies of managing a team, right? There are different schools of thought on that. Research and pick 1, pick 2. Okay, so these are the ways of managing a team, or for leadership. As a leader, everything borders on influence. There are 5 main, there are 5 main ways of gaining influence. That is termed as power, right? So leadership power that you are going to use to gain influence. Inference is 1. Expertise is 1. Cohesion is 1. What is the other one? Is 5, right? Now, for me as a leader, I choose to go with reward is also 1. So I choose to go with reward power, expertise, and then also reference, right? And reason why I choose this route is this. Now you break it down. So within my team, I make sure I'm a technical proficient. So based on my expertise, I'm able to influence my team based on my reward that, I acknowledge everybody when they do something right in front of everybody. So now they appreciate that I appreciate the work they do, right? So if you are coming from a point of knowledge, you are walking them through the theory behind what he's asking you, right? Because everything he's asking you in terms of management, leadership, and I can tell you all this, and I'm just going on because I'm a management and leadership expert, and I actually lived it at the highest level in the military, right? So come from a point of knowledge, not just I'll talk to them and I'll see if everything works out, then it's good. No, right? Let them know the theory behind management, the theory behind leadership, and then pick from that and then make it your own, right? So that is how to handle those questions. And I'm telling you, this has worked over and over and over and over for many students. So go that route instead of just going the route of, I'll talk to him and see what the problem is and I will solve the problem. No, first start with the concept behind what they are asking, right? So, and you can do the same thing with even technical questions. Okay, they are asking you what is, I know I'm jumping from the soft skills to the technical, right? But I'm using that as an example. So they're asking you about, is SSH secure? Now, what do you know about SSH? What is the knowledge behind SSH? SSH is secure shell, right? That is a fact. It runs on ports. Who can help me out here? SSH runs on port what?
Port 22.
Very good. Thank you. So you just gave him 2 facts, right? SSH secure shell runs on port 22, and SSH has replaced Telnet, which runs on port 23. That was used to initially, that was used prior to SSH. Telnet was used to mostly do remote, to have remote access, mostly used by admins, right? But it was found to be unsecured because transmission was in plain text. So if an attacker intercepts your traffic, they'll have access to your data. So now SSH encrypts the data as it's in transit. So because of that, if an attacker, captures your data, confidentiality is protected, because although they have the data, they cannot, read your data. Right. See how this is going to jump in from most of the technical questions all the way down. And now, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. Now, and you see how I'm coming from a point of knowledge. Right. Not just saying it is secure, but you have to argue your point out why it is secure, and even start by breaking it down for that person. So it shouldn't be him schooling you on this. You should be the one schooling him on it. Because if he gives you like a freebie like this, oh man, you have to take this and run with it all day till like he kind of like whistles from where he is at, that okay, slow down, right? And because when he asks you questions like this, it's an opportunity for you to shine, right? I mean, just keep flowing, because that is where you are going to make your money, right? You don't know what other questions are coming. So the freebie ones that you get, like these ones, you have to hit like a home run, and a really big one that they cannot even find a ball after the game, right? So this is to everybody. Always come from a point of knowledge, and then you break it down to anyhow that you want it, right? So build your point from a point of knowledge. So if your knowledge is non-existent, or you are skipping steps in the course, please go back and make sure you are, closing up your short groups, right? Now, still coming back to conflict resolution, I think we talked extensively about that already. Now, incident response, what do you know about incident response? This is also a home run for everybody who has been in their internship, right? What do you know about incident response, or how do you do incident response? This is also a big home run, right? You should break incident response down with scenarios and examples that we probably used when we looked at the theory and concept side of it. And then now you take him to the actual doing of the incident response, right? You were part of an incident response team. What did you do? What were the policies you put in place? What was the SOP? What was the incident response plan for the company, right? All these are freebies because they are something that you've actually done. So don't leave any money on the table, right? Because like these, like I'm telling you, you don't know what other question is going to come. So for questions that you can hit big home runs, please do. Make sure you prepared yourself way enough. Revisit your notes, right? Always come from a point of knowledge, right? Now, I think that will be enough for this one. And then also for the technical side, we kind of touched on everything. Or if anybody has any inputs for Fabi and for Karen, they can bring it up. I think there are some questions in the chat. Yeah, go ahead, Adrian.
Thank you, Doc. I have 3 areas I wanted to find out, because when they're asking about there being no hardware firewall, do they mean things like being able to put in maybe multi-factor authentication and building software firewalls or segmentation in the networks or application proxies? And then the other thing,
maybe to your first question, sorry, to your first question before you continue. So since that question wasn't very clear, right? Yes. I think everything else that we will say will be just speculation.
Okay.
Right. So you can go with your second question.
Okay. Now, when this guy is talking about limitations of NIST and maybe OWASP, is it, at that point, is it trying actually to give you an opportunity to jump in and say, okay, we could use things like OpenVAS to go beyond just the 10 issues that OpenVAS could be looking at, or we could use CIS controls to supplement NIST CSF? Is that what they're trying to give you?
Yeah, good point. So, I mean, like I always tell everybody, Adrian, like, where do you live now, or like where are you from, or maybe what school did you go to? And maybe like that will help.
I'm in Nairobi now.
Yeah, so don't even answer that. So I don't think there is anybody on here who supports maybe an NFL team or a basketball team, and we are holding a conversation about that basketball team, and you are just going to, like, you've supported this team for a while, and you are just going to sit in a conversation and not say anything. I hope everybody gets the point that I'm trying to make.
Okay,
If you are a security professional and there's a security conversation like this going on, and you are there like, okay, with no input, like, what are you telling me? I mean, with this conversation, you should be able to say something all day. Example is what Adrian is bringing up. So if he's calling out flaws in these frameworks that we use, and then I also mentioned this during the internship, right? Why do we, for the internship, when we were building like security programs for these companies from scratch, why do we use 2 or more, or we encourage you to use 2 or more frameworks instead of 1? That way, if one framework, let's look at it as a net, right? If one framework doesn't catch everything, the other framework will catch it, right? So you can stack up frameworks 2 or 3. So if he's talking about, frameworks, NIST has its flaws, OWASP has its flaws. I mean, all of them are going to have flaws, but that is why we stack them up. So the flaws in this, OWASP is going to, maybe CIS is going to catch. The flaws in CIS, ISO 27701 is going to catch the flaw, right? So they are all not going to be 100%. And they have flaws because every framework focuses on a specific area of security, leaving the other areas to fend for themselves, right? An example, PCI DSS doesn't care about any other data but cardholder data or your credit card and debit card information. Every other data they can do whatever they want. PCI really careless, right? So that is a flaw. If you implement PCI in your company, you are only protecting cardholder data. You're not protecting personal health information or PII, right? If we consider cardholder data in this instance, we take it out of PII, right? So there are other areas of your, and 2, other areas of your network that is not in scope for PCI, PCI doesn't care about. Right? So that is a big flaw, right? So all these frameworks, they have their flaws because they all focus on specific areas and they have their own goals and agenda for that framework. So obviously, I mean, all of them cannot cover everything. So that is why we stack them up. So this is an opportunity for you to, if they bring this conversation up, of course, so then you break it down and explain like this, why, one framework is not able to do the whole entire job, but we need other ones to also help, right? So great point, Adrian, great point. So if they bring something like that up, that is why you have to be, all-rounded, and you have to keep learning and keep reading. That way, any conversation, you can also sit in and talk intelligently about whatever topic they are talking about, right? Or even it's just like a matter of you asking some very insightful questions for them to know, okay, so, to build up the conversation. And that is why we hold meetings like this to help everybody out, right? So you don't necessarily have to be a student of Eretmis or come do anything or purchase anything from Eretmis, but we are helping everybody out with sessions like this, right? So invite your friends and family when we are coming, not just you, right? So I'm going to have Ike speak, and then we will wrap it up. Go ahead, Ike.
Hey, the last one, though.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Adrian. Your last question.
So the coding question, which obviously she wouldn't be going into coding now, but because they develop software and they seem to be talking about GDPR, would it have sufficed if she put in the fact that probably she understands the coding cycle and she knows where security should be put, and also the GDPR requires security by design and by default, and therefore she will be spearheading the security bit of the project?
Great point.
Yes,
great point. So always there has to be like you have to have some comeback, right? So don't just fall flat on the floor when you get knocked, with a big punch. And what do I mean by that? Hey, what are you familiar with? Maybe Splunk or QRadar, right? Don't say no, I don't, right? If you know your stuff, QRadar or Splunk is a SIM tool. So if you're not familiar with that, but you know some other SIM tool, that is your comeback. I'm not familiar with that, or you have a good, maybe some, I wouldn't say I'm an expert there, but with Splunk, but I've used maybe Archer in the past, right? Which, also did the same job as a SIM tool. That is a good comeback, right? If they're asking you, do you know coding? And you don't know coding. I mean, if you know coding or you don't know coding, there is no gray area in between, right? So it's either you can drive or you can't drive. There is nothing like decent, or there's nothing like that. You can either drive or you can, because if you say you can drive, guess what? They're going to hand you the key. Okay, move the car. Now you are, like the truth is going to come out. So you don't know coding, but you know the SDL cycle, right? So you know which part a security professional should play when it comes to coding, right? And your part is not to know how to code. Your part is to make sure that they are implementing all the security measures to make sure that the code they are writing is secure, right? So you understand the software development lifecycle, the different types, and where you fit in, right? So you can speak to that. They will know, although you can't code, you understand what the folks doing the coding need in terms of security, and this is what you are bringing to the table to help folks who are coding to maybe they'll have a change of mind. Maybe they don't really need somebody, a security person who can code, but a security person who understands the processes that coding and software development will go through, and what his part is in terms of security, right? That is a good comeback, right? So don't just lie flat on your face when you get knocked down with such a question that they're just going to pull out of randomly from nowhere. All right, so hopefully that helps. Adrian, you good, or you have another question? But great inputs from Adrian. Ike, you can go ahead and then Rejoice and we wrap it
Okay.
up.
Wow, it's been a very good moment, because this insight Fabi and Karen have shared, it's really in depth, and the responses is really great, because it's time to go get this job done. Interviews is not even easy to secure. So first of all, I want to say congratulations to Karen and Fabi. It's not easy to even get an interview. So Dr. Edu, I have a question and a kind of a very quick contribution. From all these responses from Fabi and Karen on the interview experience, is there any comeback, like you just said now, from your end, is there any kind of additional thing, like kind of training on OWASP top 10 and some of all this technical part of it, like both of them experience on the interview, to say, okay, maybe there will be like a class to say, okay, let's focus more on this OWASP top 10, or maybe the technical part of all this before the soft skill, because what they said means that Fabi was asked some technical questions and a little bit also from Karen. So is there going to be any arrangement for further learning for us, or we should just focus on the materials? That's a little question I have. And again, when we are sitting for interview, do we have to, like, when they caught me, assuming I'm trying to explain, like they ask me question, like you said, you don't have to fall flat. You try to discuss on the ones you know. So when I'm trying to discuss on the one I know, if they try to stop me, do I just try to finish it, or just cut it, stop it, and listen to them? That's just two things I have. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll start from your last one. I think if look at it from a boxing perspective, right? If they hit you and you also reply with a jab, right? They don't have the time to say no, don't. Right. So the example that I gave, are you familiar with Splunk? No. So you go with I'm familiar with, or I've used QRadar in the past, but Splunk I have a fair idea of, but I'm not an expert. See, so there's no time for them to stop you, right? They throw and they also throw. So you just have to be quick about it, right? And it's not like if they're asking you about Splunk, now you are talking about incident response and how you went about the whole, no. Like that, you are going to sound like a moron, because now they are wondering whether, you are sound, because what they are asking you is totally of what you're talking about. Right? So it has to be in the same line of what they are looking for, right? But I mean, if you've not really built yourself to the point where you have good comebacks, as an example, like, do you know how to code? If it's a no, it's a no, right? But if you can, on your feet, you'll be able to think and come up with what is my role as a security professional when it comes to software development. You can always come back that. And also to add to yours. So I see where you're coming from, right? You took the internship, not the entry-level course. The entry-level course, I'm surprised Phoebe was struggling with these because we more than cover everything on the technical side. Like, these are just baby technical stuff that she was asked, right? So for the entry level, it covers all of this networking and all that in depth. Now, even for the internship, the crash course that we use for the PCI students, we also posted that for you to go through. I think most people didn't go through because it's a lot of content. Most people didn't. Right? If you did, these questions are also going to be freebies. So for the further training, that was the first thing that was posted for all our interns, right, to go through. And like, that is something new that we've started. We give you the chance to go through the cybersecurity crash course that our PCI students go through. Right? So it's just a matter of you going back and revisiting those and polishing up on that. Now, when it comes to NIST and CIS and OWASP, so we use NIST, we use CIS, OWASP and MIDA and attack. The video was posted, like the lesson was actually posted for your class. So please go back to your portal and you'll be able to see it. Right? Now, for those ones, I think what Fabi had, he was just discussing the flaws in them, right? So I think, like, for those, if you understand them, you'll be able to also, and you understand security, like, you'll be able to also speak something on those lines as well. So hopefully that answers all your questions. Like, Rejoice, go ahead.
Sir, please.
Thank you, boss. That answers it.
Go ahead, Rejoice.
I want to find out if it's okay to apply for 2 different roles, job roles, in the same company, but it still falls in the cybersecurity domain. Is it okay to do that?
Yeah, I mean, if you qualify for both, then yes, you can definitely do that.
Okay.
Right. Maybe one is a security analyst, one is a security manager. You are qualified for both. Why not? Yes, you can apply for both.
Thank you.
Okay. Jermaine, go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much for giving me the floor. So, first of all, before we go to the interview, sometimes you go to interview for fun, sometimes you go to interview to really want the job. So I think this managerial role probably will be like a 7 to 10 years of experience. So if you go in there, you know that you'll be a manager. If you have him, it's a mindset. So I just want to say that, I mean, interview is a learning process, and if you don't know, you don't know. And you need to be able to listen to YouTube so that those things if you don't know, you don't have it, you can talk about it. So it's something that comes with reading, listen to people, coming to training like this, and then you'll be all set. That's all I want to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jermaine. And I think Ken was asking if those who got interviews, did you apply for the jobs, or recruiters reach out on LinkedIn to you? I think that question goes to Karen and Fabi.
So this is Karen. I actually applied, and the company's recruiter contacted me, but I applied, so it was directly from the company.
Okay. All right, and what about Fabi? If Fabi
Yes, I also applied. Okay. But I was applying for many jobs, so that's one I didn't even thought of it. I was just applying. So I applied, and then they reached out to me. The first lady that talked to me also asked me some questions, and I was able to answer, and then she told me that, okay, then we will move to the next step by talking to the hiring manager. So
Okay.
I applied it.
So, and where did you apply? Like on what platform did you use to apply for this?
It was LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about you, Karen?
So this was from Indeed, but I'm all over the place. I'm using ZipRecruiter, I'm using LinkedIn, I'm using Dice. I have my CV on Dice. I'm everywhere. So anywhere I see anything, I just put it there. Simply hired. I'm all over the place.
Okay, yeah, great. So I just want.
I
go
have
ahead.
a question.
Go ahead.
My question is, if you are applying for jobs and then some companies reach out to you, but they are telling you the job is a contract, do you have to take it or just?
Hey, if it be me, I'll take it too.
Yes, of course. I mean, it depends on what you are looking for, right? If it's like a 6 months contract or 1 year, yes, take it. Mostly for maybe 3 months, like those ones are too short, right? So if it's a contract, take it. There are some jobs that are going to be
it's 12 months.
12 months, okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is subject to renewal. So after the 12 months, they are going to renew. And some jobs are like that. They are just going to have you on contract the whole time. So don't get discouraged by the fact that it's a contract. And sometimes if you go there and you do well, they will take you from the agency or whoever is bringing you, and they will take you on full time. So take it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, everyone. So I appreciate everybody's time. We are wrapping up. For interns, we are meeting tomorrow. For Ike's group, for the seniors, we are meeting 9 a.m. Eastern, and then for new interns, 10 as usual. So, but for everybody else, we'll meet during the week. If you're in any of the courses, we meet, and for everybody else, we meet on next week, Friday, God willing. I appreciate everybody's time. We are wrapping up. Hopefully, this was very insightful. You got something out of it, and which I think everybody did. So we'll meet, God willing, next week, and we are going to start a new series for Cyber Chat. I appreciate everybody's time. Have a great weekend. I'll see you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.